YouTube, so we'll see how it goes. I'm gonna make a mushroom, sardine, anchovy. Oh, no anchovy actually. Sorry, sardine and some chorizo and some onions, and I've got black trumpet and yellow feet mushrooms and some capers and all sorts of good stuff. So I'm kind of just gonna throw that all on top of some pizza dough and really get it nicely cooked in and baked in with some cheese and stuff. So should be a good one. It's not particularly complicated, but I figured I'd try cooking on YouTube. I've enjoyed cooking on Instagram, but I post there a lot, and I haven't done any YouTube exclusives. So here's first. Right here I've got black trumpets, which are a Craterellus species. So Craterellus is the genus or genre that this mushroom belongs to. In the bowl, there's also yellow feet chanterelles, which are another Craterellus species. So these are both Craterellus species, and they're colloquially known as chanterelles, even though they're not Cantharellus. So they're a different genre of chanterelle, but they are both considered, basically a black chanterelle and a yellowfoot chanterelle. But they be quite dirty. There's a fair bit of schmutz on them, because they come from the woods. And so I gotta keep washing them off here. And I guess I'll show you that, because that's probably my first step. Usually when I cook here, I'm going to be processing and cooking my mushrooms first and doing everything sort of after that, because mushrooms can take the longest cook time. I'm also going to open a beer real quick. I got a great beer here from my friend's brewery in Davis, Dunlow Brewing. He's a phenomenal beer maker, and he honestly makes some of the best beer I've had anywhere. This is like a grilled sour peach beer. It's phenomenal. So, you gotta pour one out for the chef. Okay. Oh, yeah. Oh, it's beautiful. It's ever so lightly tart and fruity. Nice bit of acid backbone to really make the beer super drinkable. Not bitter at all for anyone who doesn't like bitter beers. It just has a nice sourness to it, which I really, really appreciate. Okay, so I'm going to point you guys over here at the bowl. And I'm just going to clean these. Craterellus, like I said, can be kind of a pain in the ass to clean. So I gotta just do this by hand. Unfortunately, there's no way I can just kind of wash them in the bowl. I have to actively get in there with my hand and try to get all that dirt off. And it's okay that these mushrooms are going to get really wet. Mushrooms can handle being wet. That's kind of what they're designed to do. These Craterellus, whether it's black trumpets or yellow feet, are hollow in the middle. And because of that, it can make them quite difficult to clean, because there's always like a Doug fir needle or some kind of pine needle or bugs or whatever stuck in the middle. So I like to actually open them up as I go along here. That's one of the few ways I can be sure I'm going to get the majority of the dirt out. And the other problem is these black trumpets are black, and they look a lot like dirt. So sometimes like a piece of black trumpet can look like a piece of dirt, and I don't want to throw away mushroom that I paid for. Mostly what I'm trying to get out here is all the little, I think they're Doug fir needles in this case, but okay. It's just it takes time when you're cooking mushrooms. You gotta clean them. If you don't clean them, well, then your mushrooms are going to taste really earthy, and that's okay sometimes, but I want my pizza to taste nice and clean and not like dirt, so I'm trying to take the time to actually clean these up here. So unfortunately, I didn't go out and forage these like I would most years. It's been a really poor year for these species in particular. I just haven't found many of them out on the coast when I've gone out there, and I'm convinced it's just kind of a crappy season for what's called the winter trio, which is black trumpets, these yellowfoot chanterelles, and then hedgehog mushrooms. which are a different genre, Hydnum species. They have little teeth underneath, and they're kind of pinkish and orangey. They're really phenomenal edibles. I really, really like hedgehogs. But like I said, it's been a crappy season for all three of these incredible, delicious mushrooms. And so I just haven't found many of them. So I've bought these at the farmer's market, and I assume they're coming from somewhere else in Northern California at this point. But even still, I haven't been super impressed by the quality of the mushrooms that are coming in. So it just makes me think that's kind of a cruddy year all the way around. But it was a particularly good year for porcini. There goes my oven. It was a good year for porcini, and so we got some interesting things. It just wasn't the winter season that I wanted, and so I'm looking forward to spring. I think I'm hoping to find some good morels and the spring porcini. So the spring season is very exciting. You can get some very large, very exciting, very delicious mushrooms. The morels are probably the most exciting, but morels are the hardest to find as well. They can be very, very, very tricky. So I'll bring you guys back to my board here. Okay. Used to filming in sort of vertical orientation here rather than this horizontal, so it may take me a second or two to get this figured out in between transitions. I'll drain my mushrooms off here. They're a little wet. Like I said, I don't worry about getting my mushrooms wet when I cook them. I'm gonna cook all the water out of them, no problem. So this is gonna go onto a pizza, and because of that, I want my mushrooms to actually be fairly well cut up. If I was putting them in a pasta, I might actually want to maintain larger pieces so they'd have a little more of their texture. But because it's going to be on a pizza, I really want them to be sort of distributed evenly. So I'm just going to roughly run my knife through. These Craterellus, they do have quite a bit of good texture of their own, but as soon as you start chopping them up like this, they kind of just blend into whatever you're cooking. So if I wanted to really maximize that texture, like I said, in a pasta, I would just keep them whole or sort of rip them in half. But I'm just going to kind of roughly chop them here, and that should be plenty for my purposes. And no matter how well I clean these, I am always going to find a needle or something in here. It's just the nature of the beast. So I'm going to go into a pan here that has no oil in it. It's a dry pan, and I'm going to do what's called a dry saute. So get this warming up over sort of medium high heat. It's a gas burner, and I'm going to just shove all these guys in here. And I know that Julia Child or any mushroom cookery would probably say, "Don't crowd the pan," and here I am crowding the pan. But that's okay. I didn't put any fat in, and my goal at this point is just to cook the water out. And it's a lot of water I put in there from cleaning these. So I'm just gonna bring these up to heat and cook the water out. And then as soon as they start drying out and sticking just a little bit, then I'll add some oil and caramelize them. And I think at that point too, I'll probably drop some onion in because I want to caramelize a bit of onion with these guys. So let me put you over here. Oh, I see 2 people are on the stream. Hello, welcome to Mushroom Stuff. Usually when I stream on TikTok, I have about 100 people watching. If I stream on Instagram, I usually get about 50. So we're trying out YouTube. So it's just 3 of us right now. Okay. Back here, I'm just cutting up an onion. That's not super exciting to watch, so I just want you guys to see these mushrooms and watch them cook down. Really, pay attention to the the way the water starts pulling out of them, and they'll turn into a soup within about 30 seconds to a minute, and that liquid will cook off. Yep, plenty of liquid in there. You can even boost the heat up a little bit, really. Let's just put these in high heat, get them to dry out. Sorry about the shaking. All right, see? There you go. It's turned into soup. But we're not turning these mushrooms into soup, no. We're just cooking the water out. And that's, these craterellis in particular will hold a lot of water because they're hollow in the middle, and the yellow feet tend to be pretty soggy. The black trumpets aren't quite as liquidy as the yellow feet, but with both of them together, it's pretty soupy, as you can see. So I'm just going to cook this aggressively to get all the water off. And, I'm keeping all the flavor in the pan, too. That's important when you kind of reduce something like this. There's also, predictably, fir needles in here, so I'm going to try to pull those out. You get it? I hope I got it. When you cook mushrooms, there's going to be some dirt. Okay. So just continue to cook these for another minute or two. That water will really start to blow off. There we go. So the real trick here is to cook all this water off before I add any oil. So there's no oil in this pan. And that allows the water to evaporate without the mushrooms getting soggy. And I know they look soggy right now, but as soon as this water evaporates and I put a little bit of oil on them, they'll start getting crispy. But if I put that oil on before I got the water out, A, you'll never get all the water out, and B, they'll never really get crispy because that water will still be stuck in there with the oil, and you just get a soggy, insipid mess, which I don't enjoy. So really big fan of this sort of dry saute on your mushrooms. Cook as much liquid out as you can. And with commercial button mushrooms and stuff, they really don't hold that much liquid. So you don't need to do this step quite as much with, just a standard portobello or white button mushroom or something like that. But if you do want to wash them well, they can take on some moisture, and this is a good way to deal with it. It's also a good way to develop flavor, because I'm more comfortable putting really, really high heat on a mushroom like this when there's no fat there, because the fat will burn at high heat, and the mushrooms won't really. They'll just kind of give up their water. So, there's a lot of good reasons to do this dry saute. And honestly, it's the easiest thing. You don't even need to put fat in here. Often if I'm cooking mushrooms to freeze them, I'll do it without fat. I'll just cook them with heat and then freeze them, because if the oil's in there, the oil is what will go rancid over time and take on weird flavors from your freezer. And that's, when something's been in the freezer too long, it tastes weird and it's freezer burned, but a lot of it is because of the oils and the fats in there have taken on the characteristic flavor of your freezer, which is usually not a good thing. Okay, so these are just starting to get the point of sticking. Almost there, almost ready for some fat. I'm going to probably put down a nice glug of oil. Then put these onions in first. So I just diced up about half a yellow onion here. Get all that stuff in there. A little more salt. And I've got just some neutral oil here. You can use olive oil, but it's more likely to burn. And I don't need a ton of it here. So I'm just going to try to get a little bit of color on these onions and get them to break down a bit and sweeten up and take on some of the delicious umami of these mushrooms. And you know what? I'm just going to put a whole onion here. Onions are good. Like every time I go to cook onions down, I'm like, man, I could have put, twice as many onions in here. And so that's what I'm thinking. I'm looking at the amount in there and going, that looks like the right amount raw, but as soon as they're cooked, they're really going to break down. So I'll just pop the other half an onion in too. And this will help bulk up my mushroom addition to my pizza. Boom. Because I got extra onion, I'm also going to put a little bit more oil. This time I use olive oil. There you go, olive oil. And just a tiny pinch more salt. Mushrooms are a lot like potatoes in that they can take a lot of salt. So you definitely can't oversalt them. But a mushroom in general can take more salt than most foods. Just like a potato could. So the rule of thumb goes that chefs like to season things like seawater, which is about 2% salt by weight. But stuff like potatoes, because it's kind of a bland flavor and the salt really helps bring out the flavor, you want to go with about 2.5 to 3% by weight of salt. And so I don't weigh anything when I cook, but if I wanted to, I would add about 2.5% by weight salt to my mushrooms. But that's really difficult to tell too, because that's your cooked mushroom, not your wet mushroom. You cook a lot of moisture out of mushrooms when you cook them. So I would wait to salt my mushrooms till sort of the end. And I mean, I salt mushrooms multiple times while I cook. I put a little bit in at the start of the dry saute. I tend to put in a little bit more when I put the oil in and start browning them. And then right when I finish, I'll use a little bit of flaky salt or another kind of sort of finishing salt to add some more flavor and texture as well. So if I use like flavored salts, I'll usually use them at the very end of a recipe. Unless, if it's an herb salt, you can kind of cook that in, but even still. Okay. Behind the scenes here, I'm going to process some of these green onions and just cut the green parts off and start working with the white parts. So as soon as these onions and mushrooms are done, the rest of this pizza is going to come together pretty quickly since everything is pretty much ready. So I'm just going to keep cooking these down until the onions get a little bit broken down and brown. I want them to have that kind of nice sweetness, caramelized flavor. So I'll just bless this too with the whites of our onions. So I probably won't put garlic in this, but I'll use the whites from the onions to bring sort of another allium onion flavor. And I like doing that when you're going to cook with alliums and onions or garlic and stuff. It's nice to combine one or two. I think if you start combining three or more, you can lose some of the kind of individual characteristics. And that's not a bad thing. Sometimes I love to like put tons of green onions and leeks and onions and garlic and all this stuff in a dish, but sometimes it's nicer to kind of have just two so you have really focus on those flavors. So this is going to have the nice sweetness from the yellow onion and a little freshness too from the whites, the green onion. Back here I'm also going to cut up a nice big chunk of just whole milk mozzarella, and then cut this up. There's some cheese. And I don't like buying the pre-shredded mozzarella. Yeah, it's convenient. It's really convenient, but it's got silicon dioxide on it, and it never tastes right. And I feel like I really like whole milk mozzarella for pizza. It just makes pizza so much better. Don't eat that fake cheese. Don't eat light cheese. It's not cheese. It's a food product. They put so many stabilizers and other stuff in it. It stops being cheese. And if you're trying to lose weight, I guarantee you probably the cheese, fat, and dairy isn't your main issue. It's going to be too many carbs, too much animal fat. And dairy fat is animal fat, so you do have to be careful. But it can be part of a healthy diet, especially if your body's adapted to it. Some people can't have dairy at all. And that's another thing to be totally aware of, is people have different needs for their systems. And so I have like a Northern European background, and I can eat cheese just fine. Some people can't, and I feel bad for them, but it doesn't do them any good to keep trying to eat something that's bad for them or doesn't work with their system. So by all means, if they were coming over for dinner, I would cook something without cheese in it. But because I like cheese, and because my body handles cheese pretty well, I'm not going to feel bad about it. I'm not going to eat light cheese and have a crappy substitute for cheese. I'm just going to enjoy the good stuff. And, people who are vegan, they've got those cashew cheeses and stuff now. I don't love them, but it's better than nothing. If you're vegan, I can totally see that filling the same kind of niche. You want to get one of those cheese replacement slices and put it on your sandwich. That's fine, but what I don't like is the light cheese stuff, the fake dairy or the vegan dairy is totally fine. They're recapitulating something, but like the light cheese is just cheese without fat. It's cheese without flavor. And at that point, what are you eating? It's just, you're eating like xanthan gum and stabilizers and carrageenan and stuff, which is all fine, but it's not it's not cheese, you know. If you're gonna have some cheese, just enjoy the real cheese. You know, don't try to skimp out and buy the stuff that you think is healthier for you, because I guarantee you it's not. It's not healthier. Okay, so I just turned the heat off to this. I'm gonna let the residual heat just carry through, cooking the rest of this and getting it nice and sweet. I'll probably put one more little pinch of salt over the top there, and I'll bring you guys back to the board so you can see what I do as I assemble this dish. Okay, put you guys back here, and shift my table back. Okay, so cheese over here. Bring pizza dough front and center. Got our green onions. Got our tapenade. We have some sardines. I think I'm going to put some chorizo in this too. Make it a little Spanishy. Sardines and chorizo sounds pretty good to me. I know it may not sound good to everybody, but you're not the one making dinner. I am. So. Okay. So I tried this recently. Usually when I make pizza, I go through the effort of like getting my pizza really, or my oven really hot, and using my pizza stone, and being very sort of chefy about it. You know, I get the pizza dough really, really thin, and I make it as good as I can, and I love it. I absolutely adore pizza like that. But it takes a lot of effort. I have to have enough energy. I have to feel confident enough. I have to have kind of a pizza ideas sketched out in my head to know exactly what I want to do. And that can be stressful. It can be challenging, and it can sometimes be a barrier that gets in the way of me wanting to make pizza. So I've been experimenting with low effort ways to make pizza, and this was one of the lowest of all effort ways I tried making pizza, but still very good. And it was the complete opposite of having nice, really thin, crusty pizza. It's very thick, very doughy, very bready pizza, and it's basically focaccia. I mean, I'm taking pizza dough, which is essentially focaccia, and not stretching it out, just letting it be nice and yeasty and bubbly, and trying to kind of get it evenly distributed around this pan here. So I'm just put a little olive oil on my hand so I can work with this. And I'm just going to push it around to all the corners. You know, I'm not super concerned about this thing because I know that it's whatever happens in the oven, it's going to turn out well. So I want this nice and oily. I'm not looking for anything really to be crispy here. I'm just, maximizing the gooiness of the dough and the olive oil and all the stuff to really get a nice, if I can, I'm trying to push it up on the side just a little bit to kind of create a bit of a deep dish effect for the fillings as I put them in. And I'll kind of go with the same ethos of deep dish and put the cheese on the bottom and the more saucy ingredients on top. So I've got my oven heated up to about 425, so it'll be ready to receive this once I get this thing assembled. Oh yeah, gotta take that beer break. This beer just reminds me of summer. It almost feels wrong to be drinking it. Well, it's still, I guess it's not cold. It's definitively spring now here in Napa, so I shouldn't feel too weird about this, but I drank this sour peach beer last summer, and I remember being really enthralled with it and really impressed by how tasty it was. So I'm just laying on a bunch of cheese here. Don't, just want it to be semi-even, but it doesn't really matter that much since everything is going to puff out and expand. So let's try to get that not under the dough at least. Let's get it into the corner. So, and some people might think it's weird to put seafood and cheese together. I don't entirely disagree, but I keep doing it and it keeps tasting really good. So, I'm just gonna keep doing me and use some other really salty, delicious stuff like tapenade to go along with this. This is just a really big can of sardines and tomato sauce that I bought super cheap at a Mexican market today, and I just want to see how they are. So, but they're probably going to be whole fish, most likely, and so it's going to require me to do a little bit of extraction here, probably to take the meat off of the fish bones, because I don't want to put fish bones in my pizza. But I do want to use this tomato sauce that comes in here. See that nice fishy tomato sauce? My partner really, really likes fishy flavors, so this will appeal to her in a way that it probably wouldn't appeal to a lot of people. But spread a little bit of tomato sauce around there. Clean that up. Okay. Oh, so these may already be. Hi, Tiger Paw. There's my cat. Okay, so yeah, I can feel these have some fish bones in them, but I can probably, for the most part, pull it off the backbone here. This is, when you eat sardines, this is sort of the thing you do. You carefully remove the flesh off of the backbone, and try to not eat the bones. The bones, they're not, at this point, their bones are pretty darn broken down. They don't have a whole lot, going on. So it's not the worst if you accidentally eat a little piece, but it's still nicer not to have them in there. So, okay, there we go. Spread our sardines around. So, open this thing up. This is better. I can pull this out carefully and get the bones out. All right. Yes, hello, Tiger Paw. You guys are getting a good dose of the teepers. She's been upstairs napping all afternoon. I know. Okay. Well, you know what, cat? I've got fish stuff all over my hands, which you might actually be pretty into right now. I guess thinks my cat would be into me. I'll take a little bit of this fish gunk and give it to her when I'm done here. Ugh, crud, this one didn't. There we go. Just trying to cleanly open them up so I can more easily grab that backbone out of the middle. Okay. So I'm just gonna break up the fish all up on top here. Okay. Okay, and we will use maybe not all the sauce. Fuck it. We'll use all the sauce. There we go. Okay. So now we got to get some salty components up on top here. So I'm going to go in with this tapenade. It's an olive tapenade. I'll probably just sprinkle it around with my handsies. So this will be, again, more salty umami goodness. That should work with the tomato sauce and the fish. Maybe in the spirit of a puttanesca kind of thing going on. You know, I think there's enough fish on here that I don't really need. I don't need the chorizo. I think it'll be fine with just the fish and the salty stuff. Sometimes you set out to make something and realize that, you know, your plan, I don't know, I think too much, and I always try to put too much, and so sometimes I need to remember to pull back and not overdo it, to just let my dish be what it's going to be without trying to add too much more. And I think that adding the chorizo here might be adding too much more, so I'll just focus on really maximizing these nice salty, fishy flavors with these capers and the olives and the sardines and some good salty cheese, and then also some freshness by putting a bunch of these green onions on top. And then I of course can't forget my mushrooms. I think maybe I should put my mushrooms on now. Here's one ladle full of mushies. So we'll put these on. There's onions and black trumpets and yellow feet here. I don't need to totally overdo it. I want to get a nice mixture of mushrooms and fish and salty stuff here. So I'll get all that goodness going on. Nice. I've got about a third of my mushroom mixture left, and I'll probably use that in like a pasta or an omelet later in the week. So I do that a lot, where I'll cook up mushrooms and use some of them in what I'm making, and then later on I will use the rest in something else. So I'm gonna throw these sardine bits away. Okay. Now, go ahead and get these green onions sliced up. So I'll leave some green onions to put on top when it comes out of the oven and let the heat wilt those down. But for now, I'm going to put a nice big sprinkle of these up on top so they can get kind of crispy from being in the oven. I really, really like the flavor of slightly burnt, slightly crisp green onions. I think it's one of my favorite culinary tricks, is to really just burn green onions basically and then see how delicious they can become. It's amazing when you broil them or grill them and then put them into a salsa or beat them into like a chimichurri or some kind of, you know, herb oil sauce kind of thing. So I've just got a Parmesan blend here, and I'm gonna go hard on top with this stuff. Lots of good salty cheese. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So try to clean this off a little bit. And like I said, I've got my oven at about 450, and probably gonna put this in for, I don't know, I'm guessing 20-ish minutes. So here it is. This is what we're working with. You got pizza dough and sardines and tomato sauce and mozzarella and tapenade and capers and Parmesan. Anything else on here? Oh yeah, all my like black trumpets and yellow feet mushrooms with some onion. Should be really good. I'm hoping it'll turn out well. So point you guys towards my oven, and you can see that's the final moments of this thing. Sorry, my stand is not behaving. Okay, so we're going in the oven. When it's ready to start its thermal journey, get my edges cleaned off here, and in we go. So anyhow, point this up. It's ahead of you guys. Thank you for joining me on YouTube. It's my first time doing live cooking here. Like I said, I usually do these on Instagram. So if you want to see more live cooking, check Instagram, but there it's in the vertical format. So, everything has a plus and a minus. But if you want to learn more about me, you can visit my website, fastingbyfungi.com. I've got a frequently asked questions tab where I answer a lot of the questions that people have for me about foraging and how to get into foraging and are mushrooms dangerous and how do you tell what's toxic and all that kind of stuff. It's all on my website. I've got some cool shirts too where you can get original mushroom designs. And yeah, I'm on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, Pinterest, all the things. Feel free to follow along. I've even got a Patreon, so if you want to ask me cooking questions, feel free to subscribe to my Patreon. But anyhow, thanks guys. Have a good one. We will end our stream there. So thank you very much.